Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter for boxing-related tweets, or you can subscribe to the channel and get notifications whenever a new video is uploaded. First and foremost, I have to thank Hatman. Thank you so much for the shout-out, the complimentary shout-out. It was a lovely thing. You know, I've always, I've said it many times in the past, I love Hatman's work. It's my favorite boxing channel. So, to come across something like that so unexpectedly, and he was so complimentary, it made my day. I had my brother call me. We didn't talk about it. I didn't tell him about it. He just called me like, dude, you got to put on Hatman's channel. A few people were messaging me, so it was nice. Thank you very much. I felt like I was at the Oscars getting a shout out. But all joking aside, I really appreciate that. Thank you. And I want to welcome all the new subscribers. A whole bunch of you have signed up to the channel. I really appreciate you guys being here. I should give you a heads up about what we do, because it's not really the typical sort of, I don't really bring boxing news as such. It's not that sort of channel. It's more technical analysis, tactical analysis, a lot of breakdowns. We get quite scientific when it comes to analysing what's going to happen and why it's going to happen. I kind of see it kind of like, I guess, almost like a biochemical engineer will look at viruses and try and figure out, what are the optimal conditions for the growth of bacteria or a virus, how it spreads, the inhibitors that can stop it and kill it. It's almost scientific. They want to know systems and processes. I'm doing the same sort of thing, but when it comes to boxing. And since Hatman gave me a shout out, I'm going to give someone else a shout out. His name's Ivor Cummins. He's a biochemical engineer. You guys should definitely check out his presentations on YouTube. He's a scientist. If you're interested in what's going on in the world at the moment, so, the reason that you're under house arrest, let me just put it that way, and the way that data is manipulated to get you into that position, politicized, corrupted, you'll find it very, very interesting. If you're into that sort of thing, if you're into the science of what's going on, check that channel out. But yeah, let's get to what we do. And we're talking boxing, and that's what we want to do, get to the bottom of things. I want to talk about Anthony Joshua, Kubrat Pulev, how I think this fight's going to play out. So let's get cracking. First and foremost, Kubrat is a very, very underrated fighter. There's been a lot of talk about, this is a nothing fight, and obviously everyone wants to see the big one with Fury. But this idea that somehow Pulev's just, a nothing average fighter is just not true. He's a very, very technical, very intelligent chess-playing fighter. So let's talk about some of the things he does. In martial arts, in Eastern martial arts, some of the Shaolin stuff, you often get a martial art that will be based on the movement of an animal. So you'll get a martial art, a fighting system that's based on the cobra, it's styled on a cobra or a viper. You'll get one that is styled on a mongoose or a monkey. Well, if Kubrat Pulev was an animal, he reminds me a little bit of a cat, which doesn't sound too intimidating, but there are certain things he does. They're very efficient hunters, and there are certain things he does which are very, very effective. If you ever see a cat that's on these hind legs, if you see like a butterfly flying around the cat's head, or you're just play fighting, just stroking his head, you'll see often he'll get on his hind legs and lift both paws up, and he's just sitting there and he's looking to react to anything that comes his way. What Kubrat Pulev likes to do is put one hand, his left hand out forward. Okay, he has it extended, he has it upwards and extended, and the right hand, he does the same thing with it, but slightly closer to his head. And so they're raised and they're a bit further out. There's a reason for this, okay? There's a method to the madness. Firstly, each hand is looking to engage the opponent's adjacent hands. So let's say he's fighting an orthodox fighter, which he will be doing. His lead left hand will constantly be focused on that right hand, the power hand. He pays more attention to that than he does to the right hand. The right hand is closer to his face. It's still out there, but he looks to use it in the way that Joe Louis used to use it, but in a different way. What Joe Louis used to do is have the right hand by his chin, and as he'd throw a jab, he'd literally catch. That's where the phrase, I don't know if it comes from Joe Louis, the phrase, but it would almost be like a literal catch, like someone's throwing a tennis ball at him. He'd try and almost catch the punch that's coming his way, catch the fist. He wouldn't close his fist, obviously. It was more like an American football glove. He'd just absorb it to stop it hitting his chin while he throws the same shot to land on the opposing fighter's chin. This is what Pulev does. Pulev does it a bit differently. Pulev won't shoot the jab out. He'll have his hand already further out, his left hand. His right hand will also be a little bit further out in the hope that he can maintain some distance to stop a guy sort of dipping down and throwing like a shovel hook or something. But he is susceptible to being hit with leaping left hooks. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's go back to that Vladimir Klitschko fight. One of the things he did in that fight, so imagine Klitschko's arm is directly in line with the camera, okay? He will sit there, and Pulev, and he will rotate. He'll move, rotate, just have some movement with that left hand. Now, the reason he does that is because if he's completely still and then he shoots, that movement is a tell. It acts as a tell. So what he tends to do instead is consistently move, just so that you don't know when the shot's coming, okay? It's harder to read that pattern. But if that hand's in the middle, let's say Vladimir Klitschko's or his opponent's, Anthony Joshua's hand's going to be here. With Klitschko, what he likes to do is he wants to line up his left hand with the face of Vlad or any opponent. Okay, I'm using Vlad now as an example because this is what happened in that fight, but this is what will apply with Anthony Joshua in my opinion. He will move his hand just inside, so he'll keep moving, but when he wants to throw the jab, it will come just inside the hand of Anthony Joshua. And from that inside position, he'll shoot the jab if he wants to lead. If he doesn't want to lead and he's waiting, which is the way he rocked Vlad, he started really well in the first 90 seconds of that fight. He hurt Vlad. It looked like Vlad was going to get stopped early, and then Vlad caught him with that left hook, which again, we'll talk about why that happened. What he'll do, because his hand's already out, his hand is halfway towards your face. Now, Vladimir was obviously trying to shoot a little bit more of a traditional right hand. The left hand's cut off from the right hand that's raised, so he doesn't have that trajectory, that journey, that path. So what Vlad tried to do is launch himself in with the right hand. Because his hand, Pulev's hand's already close, rather than up here, his hand's further out. As Vlad jumps in, he's able to meet him just by stepping into it. And he's solid. He's got a solid jab, Pulev. So what happens is kind of like think about two cars, right? If one car's driving at 20 miles an hour and it hits into a stationary car, there's going to be an impact. But if it's going at 20 miles an hour and the other car's coming the other way at 20 miles an hour and they collide head on, it's 20 miles times 20 miles. It's an impact that's magnified, right? And that's what happened to Vladimir Klitschko. As he moved into the shot, it really affected him. So although it comes across as just a heavy jab, in a way it's like a power shot and you're moving into it. And he really hurt him. So he will look to line up that hand on the inside of Anthony Joshua's guard when he wants to shoot a jab. If he wants to throw the right hand, something that you'll see with the Chisora fight, down the pipe, what he'll often do is, remember, he often moves that lead hand. He has it moving. When it comes on the outside of the lead hand, outside of the guard, he'll still throw it like a normal jab. It won't be like a throwaway left hook the way Froch threw against Groves to create space for the right hand. But when he'll throw that jab, he'll shift slightly his body. So he'll throw the jab and move over. Now his right hand is directly in line, and then he'll shoot the right hand. The reason that's important is because if I'm over here and I want to get my right hand to your face and I have to rotate and come across, I'm coming diagonally. Whereas if I'm there, it just comes straight. There's less of a tail on it. And not only is there less of a tail on it, it's shorter distance to travel. Now, something I've spoken about in the past, in the distant past, the reason you have brake lights on the back of a car is because the way your brain works, the way your brain registers movement, it registers it more effectively laterally than it does coming at you. So if you're driving and there's no brake light and the guy in front of you brakes, your brain might take a split second more to register that it's stopped moving, and you'll go and clatter into the back of the car. So as a result, when there's no real tail on a shot and it comes straight, your mind doesn't pick up on that as quickly. So a right hand, your mind will see the lateral movement coming across to land on you. Whereas when it's coming straight, it will take your mind a little bit longer, that split second, just to say, oh, there's movement. And Pulev's very, very good at that. That's what Pulev is excellent at doing. One of the things he does do that's a problem for him potentially, one of the reasons he was getting caught with left hooks is because he's so focused on catching a straight shot and his hand's already out here, and he's more focused on that power shot, that right hand. A left hook can catch him out. He's expecting something here. It's about multitasking with your mind and your eyes. It's difficult, right? So he's more focused on trying to catch a straight shot, a straight jab, essentially, but taking care of your power shot when you're an orthodox fighter, which can leave him a little bit susceptible to a left hook. Is Anthony Joshua as athletic in terms of agility and speed as Vladimir Klitschko? I don't think so. That doesn't necessarily Vladimir Klitschko in his prime, say when he fought Pulev. I don't think he is. He's a bit more top heavy. He might have, his hands might be very fast, but in terms of his feet and upper body movement, I don't think he's more robotic than Vlad. It will be interesting to see whether he can close that range quickly enough with those lead power shots to land on Pulev. That could cause Pulev a problem. Because his arms are already out always to the side, there's that gap in the middle of Pulev as well. So what can happen in that situation is you want to target that center of Pulev. So what he tends to do, his entire defense when it comes to protecting himself from the middle is his feet. When you're going to throw a looping right hand, what he'll often do is that left arm will come here. It'll just come by the side of his tempo and he'll cut anything off that you want to throw. But when it comes to straight shots, he's very much about moving in and out. Very amateur-based style. Not amateur as in amateurish, but like amateur boxer. Very Eastern European, very upright, very good technically, intelligent, tactical with his approach, always thinking. But there isn't much lateral head movement. His movement is all about back and forth. He will never drop the shoulder, spin off, pivot off and start rotating the ring. He's in straight lines. Now, the problem with fighting in straight lines is that if you are pulling back and you get caught pulling back, you're off balance and you're in serious trouble. What Pulev tends to be quite good at, though, is having his feet underneath him. So what happens is he'll retreat as you come forward. And he gets you a little bit desperate. Sometimes you can start to lunge. And what he's very good at, because his feet are always underneath him, even when he's moving backwards, because they're not big strides where he's off balance and his positioning in terms of balance can stay under him, what he's capable of doing is quickly switching that trajectory. So you're moving backwards, back. You're moving forwards, chasing him. He's moving backwards. Bang. He'll then throw a straight right hand. One of the things he's very good at doing as well is targeting the body, the solar plexus. He can do it. He might throw a left hand, and then right hand to the body. So he varies the height dynamic of his attacks. And when he throws that right hand, it could either be straight, like a spear-like shot. He can do that with a jab too, to the solar plexus, or he throws it almost like an uppercut, come shovel hook. And these are powerful shots, and they can deter a guy from coming forward. So if, a lot of people are saying, Anthony Joshua's just got to get in there and jump on him. Anthony Joshua can't just run into the guy. He's going to have to be subtle, because he's going to have a powerful left jab that's already halfway in there, close to the target. And if he gets past that, he could potentially walk onto a straight right hand or a straight right into the solar plexus. So AJ's got to be creative. He's got to come in with more of a double jab. He's got to find a way, a jab followed by a throwaway. First, a solid left hook. Start making him think more about right. It's not just straight shots that are coming from that left hand position. He's dropping in some hooks as well. He'll remember what happened with Vlad, and then you can start looking at throwaway left hooks with the lead right hand and stuff like that. Because one thing about him is that when he is not moving backwards quickly enough, when he doesn't react, or if he goes back and his back hits the ropes, there is no plan B when it comes to the defense. It's very much about his feet. He might throw an arm up to cover the side of his head, but in terms of straight in front of him, he panics. And not only does he panic a little bit, I guess panic's the wrong word. It's not panic. It's more a case of he's uncomfortable. And what you'll see when he gets caught as well, he's a very proud man. When he got dropped by Vlad, he stood up and he stood on one leg to show, and he's wobbling and he's standing on one leg to show the world, you didn't hurt me, and he's laughing. When Huey Fury caught him with a combination, he started laughing. It's like he feels embarrassed when he's hit. You can tell he's a very tough man and he doesn't like it. But because of that, he can lose his focus a little bit. So what AJ's going to have to want to do, like I said, is force the fight into a mid-range. I wouldn't want to get too close if I'm Anthony Joshua, because one thing about Pulev, he's not the best inside fighter in terms of working on the inside. Although the one thing he's very good at in terms of being on the inside and fighting is freeing his right hand. And when he frees that right hand, he does throw these right chopping shots where he gets his elbow up and he's chopping down, and sometimes there'll be rabbit punches too, and he can cause you some damage there. And we've, Anthony Joshua, we've seen him. AJ's chin's not terrible. It's not terrible, but he seems to take a shot well to the face, to the chin, to the nose, the forehead. But just above the ear, when he gets clipped, he seems to be affected. He does seem, I don't know if it's an eardrum issue, a balance issue. Sometimes he's affected with those shots. And the way he throws his right hook, which is high and then chopping down, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts catching AJ there and AJ starts to dislike it, doesn't like it. And AJ's not that great at tying up. We saw AJ try to tie up Andy Ruiz on numerous occasions, and he wasn't having too much success. Even when, on the rare occasion, when Joseph Parker tried to get on the inside, the referee would break them. But AJ never looked like he was tying him up. It looked like Parker could have been free to work. So he's going to want to be careful about that, because even if he ties up that left hand, he always finds a way to free the right hand. He's very good at doing that, Pulev. However, AJ at close mid-range is a very, very good fighter. His hooks are always tight. There's a lot of rotation. For such a big man, he gets from point A to B so quickly, and they're so tight. They're brilliant shots. And when Pulev can panic, sometimes when his arms are up, his head will drop. Now, if you remember, long-time subscribers will know, when we were talking about the Vladimir Klitschko fight, I said in the build-up to that fight, the key shot potentially for AJ was the uppercut. Because Vlad would do something similar. His hands come up, both hands, and he dips his head. And indeed, it was that huge uppercut that potentially changed the trajectory of the fight. So that's one thing AJ's going to want to look at to have success. Another thing that AJ can look at to have success, when Kubrat Pulev ties up or someone's tying him up, whatever the case, when the ref says break, when they disengage, he has a slight pause, a reset in his mind where he loses focus. Look out for this. He got caught with the left hook like that in the first round against Vlad, and he got dropped. He got caught with another shot like that again in round 4 against Vlad, and a couple of occasions against Hughie Fury. So look out for that. He lapses concentration. Now the reason that's important in this particular fight is because when Vlad was ahead in the fight, there was one point where AJ came out, I think it was round 10 or 11, and he landed a straight right hand straight away. You know how they usually come into the center of the ring and they'll throw a jab, they'll measure each other up. He walked straight over immediately for a right hand. It caught Klitschko out, and Klitschko was taken aback by it. AJ should look to do something like that. The moment the referee says break and they step off, look to throw a quick shot. He's not always ready to defend himself straight after a break, straight after that pause. So that's something you got to think about too. The one final thing he does, I'm trying to talk quickly, so I'm trying to get the video done quickly. I don't want it to run over and be a long video to bore you guys to death. One of the things he does as well, Pulev, although he's got fast feet when he's retreating, sometimes he'll hold his feet a little bit too long. It's that pause thing we're talking about. Sometimes, maybe it's a lack of focus. Maybe he's so focused on the hands that he's trying to, deal with in front of him when he's got these hands up, because like I said, he's a very technical sort of chess playing fighter. He can let a guy come a little bit too close into range, and you don't want to be doing that against Anthony Joshua. So AJ, some of the key punches, he should look to establish that left hook, in my opinion, even if it's just, a throwaway shot. I'm sure since that fight with Vlad, he would have worked a lot on this Pulev. So just give him something to think about, even if it's not going to be the punch you're necessarily going to knock him out with. Look for that straight right hand, which you will have success with. He will move back as you're throwing that right hand, so he's going to look to take that off him, take that off you. And one of the things that AJ does, which is an error from AJ's perspective, one thing he can do, when he throws that right hand, he can sometimes lean his weight, shift the weight over the top of his lead left foot. If he does that, he's essentially overcommitting, and that can affect balance. And there's one thing you don't want to do against Pulev, who likes to lean back, because not only does he have his hands up, he leans back as well, and he's looking to step back. The reason, like I said, he's looking to step back and he's got his feet under him is that he can step back and then counter you, step back and come back in. If AJ overreaches consistently, or even one time, it's heavyweight boxing, he could get caught with something big. So he's got to be disciplined, Anthony Joshua, but still find a way behind the double jab, behind some feints, behind the throwaway left jab before coming in with a right hand. He's got to find a way to come at mid-range and start targeting that body, targeting the head, throw those left hooks that will get him, or right hooks that will get him ducking. When he's ducking, look for that uppercut. If I had to predict how the fight would go, I believe that Pulev's probably at an age now where his reflexes are slowing. It's a very reflex-based style. It's technical, very technical, but for him to be in and out against a taller man, and he tends to do well against taller men, you do have to be fleet of foot as well. I think at this point, Anthony Joshua's going to find a way, but I do think there will be some scary moments for AJ potentially in this fight early on. I think if it becomes a jabbing contest, I think AJ could get outboxed here. AJ's got to find a way to turn it into a fight, but not a sloppy brawl. Pulev, Anthony Joshua, I've stood next to him on numerous occasions. He's a very muscular man, but he's quite slim. So he's muscular because he's built the muscle, but he's not particularly broad. Whereas Kubrat Pulev, I have not been next to Pulev, but I've been next to Dillian White. I've been next to Chisora, and when he was next to Chisora, and Chisora and White are big men. They're like rhinoceroses. They're wide. He didn't look particularly out of place in terms of width, and he does seem physically strong. And David Price and a bunch of other heavyweights have said he's very physically strong. So with Anthony Joshua maybe having had some stamina issues in the past, I don't think he's going to want to be getting into situations where he's constantly wrestling with Pulev, particularly because, as I said, Pulev is very good at releasing that right hand on the inside and throwing shots up close. Let me know what you think, guys. How do you think this fight's going to go? I don't know if I've left anything out. I've tried to speed talk my way through this because we've gone to 19 minutes now. Thanks for watching. Chat to you soon. God bless.